Welcome, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss neonatal seizures. The incidence of neonatal seizures is 0.9 to 3.5 per thousand live births. You all know it's a neurological emergency with high mortality and morbidity. The clinical definition is the abnormal paroxysmal clinical events that can be motor or behavior or autonomic manifestations. American Clinical Neurophysiology Society described seizures as per the EEG as to consider as a seizure, there should be a rhythmic activity lasting 10 seconds with a minimum of 2 microvolt peak to peak voltage that evolves in quality and subsequently resolves. But there are some events which last less than 10 seconds. They are referred to as BRD or brief rhythmic discharges. They are more prone for seizures because of their immature brain and less synapses. Due to this less synapses, the focal seizures are more common and the generalized seizures are rare. The other the peculiarity of neonatal brain is there is more of excitatory neurotransmitter like glutamate and less of inhibitory transmitters like GABA. That too, GABA may sometimes act as excitatory neurotransmitters in some areas of brain. You should also keep in mind that due to the immature systems of drug handling, there may be increased drug levels in the brain, in the blood, and this immature brain is maybe more susceptible to the effects of the anticonvulsant medications. Classify neonatal seizures as per Volpe's classification and also as per EEG. So according to Volpe's classification, there are 4 types: subtle, clonic, tonic and myoclonic. What do you mean by subtle? Here the manifestations are mild and often missed. It can be a eye or ocular manifestations like some staring look, or sometimes there will be a horizontal deviation of eyes, or sometimes oral movements like chewing, lip smacking, limbs movements like cycling, pedaling movements, or autonomic movements like tachycardia or bradycardia or apnea. So especially if a term baby is presenting with apnea, suspect seizures. Now the clonic seizure means that is the rhythmic movements of the muscle groups. Okay, then what do you mean by tonic seizures? Tonic seizures, there will be sustained flexion or extension of a group of muscles. So it may resembles decerebrate or decorticate posturing. What do you mean by decerebrate? It is the tonic extension of all 4 limbs. What do you mean by decorticate? It is the flexion of upper limbs and extension of lower limbs. And fourth one is the myoclonic seizures. That is the movements, they are so fast like lightning, multiple lightning jerks of upper limbs or lower limbs. Okay, so when comparing to cloning movements, here in the myoclonic jerks, it is so rapid and there is an absence of slow return. This myoclonic seizures has got worst prognosis. As per EEG, it's classified into epileptic. Epileptic means both clinical and EEG wise seizures are there. Non-epileptic means clinical seizures are there without any EEG correlation. And EEG seizure means abnormal EEG activity without any clinical manifestations, like for example in subtle seizures. The causes, the most important one is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy or HIE, and this is the most common cause, accounting for more than 50% of cases. It can be global as in perinatal asphyxia, or it can be focal as in arterial infarction. The baby usually present with a low Apgar score and with suppressed mental status and hypotonia. Baby can have seizures within 24 hours of life. Okay. The second most common cause is metabolic derangements. Among this, hypoglycemia is the most common cause. Usually if the mother had gestational diabetes mellitus, there is a high chance of hypoglycemia in the baby. The sugar values are less than 50 milligram percent. The baby is highly prone for seizures. And the second one is hypocalcemia, when the total serum calcium less than 7 milligram percentage or ionized calcium less than 4.4 milligram percentage is called hypocalcemia. There are 2 types: early onset hypocalcemia, which occurs in first 3 days of life, and late onset hypocalcemia. Third metabolic abnormality is due to hypomagnesemia. The value less than 1.4 milligram percentage or less than 0.6 millimoles per liter is called hypomagnesemia. Hyponatremia means serum sodium less than 135. These are the 4 common metabolic derangements. Then about the cerebrovascular lesions. It can be arterial or venous. It can be ischemic or hemorrhagic. For example, like stroke or sometimes venous thrombosis, or bleeding, like it can be subarachnoid hemorrhage or it can be subdural hemorrhage in term babies, or intraventricular or parenchymal hemorrhages in preterm babies. Now coming to the infections. Infections are of 2 types. It can be congenital intrauterine infections or postnatal infections. Intrauterine infections are Toxoplasma, cytomegalovirus infections, rubella and herpes infection. Postnatal sepsis by your group B streptococci or E. coli can lead to septicemia and meningitis. Now coming to the inborn errors of metabolism. Although individually they are very rare, but this inborn errors of metabolism as a group cause at least 1% cause of seizures in the newborn. You should remember at least the 3 names. One is called glycine encephalopathy. It's also called as non-ketotic hyperglycinemia. There will be high levels of CSF glycine and also plasma glycine level. Second one is pyridoxine dependency. This is also rare, but it can also manifest as seizures in a newborn, and you may need a pyridoxine 100 mg IV under cardiorespiratory monitoring and EEG monitoring. Sometimes this IV pyridoxine may revert the seizures. If IV is not available, you can give enteral preparation also. Third one is folinic acid responsive seizures. You may require folinic acid supplementation. And you should remember other causes like benign neonatal seizures, epileptic syndromes and brain malformations. Some benign seizures. One is benign sleep myoclonus. Baby will show some myoclonic movements, especially during sleep. It has got good prognosis. But if these movements are more frequent, you should get a EEG done. Then second one is benign familial neonatal seizures occurs and otherwise well infants, usually on day 2 or day 3. The abnormality is in the potassium voltage gated potassium channels. There will be a family history of seizures. It has got good prognosis. And third one is benign infantile neonatal seizures. It's also called 5th day seizures. Its etiology is unknown and it also ceases within 2 weeks with good prognosis. A few words about the epileptic syndrome. They have got very poor prognosis. The development will be severely affected. In early myoclonic epilepsy, the myoclonic movements will be more, also focal motor movements also. Second one, O'Hara syndrome. The myoclonus is rare, baby usually present with some tonic spasms. EEG shows hypsarrhythmia. And the third one is Coppola syndrome. It's also called malignant migrating partial seizures. So also usually present within first 2 weeks with worse prognosis. A few examples of cerebral malformations are: one is cerebral dysgenesis, second one is the neuronal migration disorders. So these are the important causes of neonatal seizures. Now we are going to discuss something about seizure mimics, or there are some movements which mimic seizures. So how will you identify seizures from this non-epileptic neonatal movements or jitteriness? For example, jitteriness. So this jitteriness is stimulus evoked. If you touch the child, jitteriness will start, and you can stop by gentle restraining the child. Okay, and EEG will be normal in such cases. So you should always differentiate between seizures and jitteriness or any other non-epileptic neonatal movements. Child present to you with neonatal seizures. How will you approach such baby? One is history. You should take a detailed history about the onset, duration and progress of the symptoms. So according to the day of onset of seizures, you will get some clues about the diagnosis. For example, if the baby develops seizure on day 1, most probably it is due to hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Day 2, day 3, day 4 may be due to your hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, or also your hemorrhages like subarachnoid bleed. Towards the end of first week can be due to sepsis, or inborn errors of metabolism also can present at this time. Now, take a detailed history during the antenatal period, like history of torch infections. There's high chance of brain anomalies. And GDM, if mother had GDM, babies can have hypoglycemia. Natal history about the mode of delivery, whether it's vaginal or cesarean section, whether baby required any instrumentation, history of any birth injury, any prolonged labor, everything is important. Postnatal history, you should ask whether baby cried soon after birth, how was the baby's feeding pattern during the initial days, everything points towards to rule out hypoglycemia. Family history and consanguinity is also important to rule out benign familial seizures. Otherwise also inborn errors of metabolism also runs in the family. You can ask about the history of microcephaly, developmental delay, cerebral palsy, seizure disorders in the family. Now we are going to the examination. After vitals examination, you can go for the head to foot examination. You can examine the head to look for the size of the head. Hydrocephalus can have large head. Microcephaly can have small head. So examine the size of the head, shape of the head to look for any cephalhematoma or subcalial hematoma. Examine the face, look for any facial dysmorphism. Seizures can be there in some inborn errors of metabolism. So some clues you can get from the facial examination of the face. Now the neurological examinations, you can examine the tone of the baby. Fundus examination to rule out chorioretinitis, reflexes, and the other system examinations like hepatosplenomegaly you can get in some inborn errors of metabolism, and look for neurocutaneous markers, very important, like your macule in neurofibromatosis and hemangiomas also. The important investigations when a baby is admitted in the NICU with seizures, or you can draw blood for your basic metabolic workup like sugar, calcium, electrolytes and magnesium. Thereafter, after managing the baby initially, you can decide as per the baby's clinical condition what all investigations are needed further. Then if you need, it can go for imaging. Imaging are of three types: CT, MRI and neurosonogram. CT is able to identify calcifications, but better to avoid in neonates because of high radiation. But MRI gives fine details in asphyxia, infarct, everything. Neurosonogram is also an excellent tool. You can identify the intraventricular hemorrhage, hydrocephalus, but only thing is you can miss the posterior fossa lesions in neurosonogram. Now EEG and amplitude integrated EEG. Sepsis workup, you can go for sepsis workup, torch screen also, and in special situations you can go for inborn errors of metabolism workup, CSF and serum, lactate and glycine. Between conventional EEG and amplitude integrated EEG, conventional continuous EEG has both diagnostic and prognostic role in seizures. It requires minimum of 1 hour of examination. Sometimes baby may not throw seizures while doing EEG, so there is chance we can miss some part of seizures. And interictal EEG is very useful for prognostication of neonates with seizures. So what's amplitude EEG? Especially in those babies with birth asphyxia or those babies who are more prone for seizures, we can do these investigations. What is amplitude integrated EEG? It is a bedside technique usually used nowadays. Here we are using only a fewer number of electrodes. Here the data is amplified and compressed and displayed in a scale, so that it is a continuous measurement. You will get the events that happened around 6 hours prior, so it will help the clinician to assess the background pattern. But the only thing, you need experience and expertise to read an amplitude integrated EEG. Coming to the management of a baby with seizures, the first and foremost thing which is very important is initial stabilization. Second is management of metabolic abnormalities, and third thing anti-epileptic therapy, and fourth one is follow-up. What do you mean by initial stabilization? That is your TABC, that is used in resuscitation. Temperature, maintain the baby's normal body temperature, keep euthermic state. And second one is airway, check the airway, is there any obstruction for the airway? If there is any obstruction, clear the airway. Third one is the breathing. If baby has some breathing problems, you can support with some ventilatory support or any other respiratory support. The circulation, assess the circulation and manage accordingly with the fluid and inotropes. And second one is the metabolic abnormalities, which is easily correctable. So if your baby has low sugar value, correct it with your dextrose IV. And calcium, if baby has hypocalcemia, you can give 2 ml per kilo of 10% calcium gluconate slowly IV over 20 minutes under cardiac monitoring. If there is hypomagnesemia also, you can give magnesium injections. And now the third one is the anti-epileptic therapy. So let's see what are the anti-epileptic drugs that is commonly used in neonates. You can consider pyridoxine 100 mg, or orally folinic acid and biotin in refractory seizures. Few words about the anti-epileptic drugs that you can use in neonates. The first and foremost is phenobarbital. We all know it enhances the GABA related inhibition. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and the dose of phenobarbital is 20 mg per kilogram bolus, but you can reach up to 40 mg per kilogram. Beware about the respiratory suppression. Get everything ready for intubation. Second one is the phenytoin or phosphenitoin. Phenytoin usually acts by blockade of the voltage dependent sodium channels. Phosphenitoin is a prodrug of phenytoin. What is its advantage? Its advantage over phenytoin is less thrombophlebitis and less cardiac side effects. The dose of phenytoin is 20 mg per kilogram. Phosphenitoin is also 20 mg per kilogram. Phenytoin equivalence, or the doses of phosphenitoin you can give us 30 mg per kilogram. And the benzodiazepines like your lorazepam, midazolam, diazepam also act by binding to GABA receptor to enhance the GABA activated inhibitory chloride channels. It's also act, but we already discussed in some regions of brain what happens is GABA acts like excitatory, so sometimes we can get opposite action. But in case of refractory seizures, you can give a dose of lorazepam 0.05 mg per kg, or you can give midazolam bolus. The dose of bolus is 0.15 mg per kg. After that you can keep in a maintenance dose of midazolam. Now levetiracetam is also a promising drug nowadays. It has got less side effects and less drug interactions. Is better and most useful in infants. Other drugs which you can use is sodium valproate, lignocaine and vigabatrin. Important measures you have to take care while doing follow-up. First thing is the anti-epileptic drugs. When to tap the anti-epileptic drug? The rule is first in should be last out. So if you introduced first pheno, then phosphenitoin, then lorazepam, then levetiracetam, the first thing to be out should be the reverse order. Levetiracetam out, then your lorazepam is out, then phosphenitoin is out, then you can maintain the baby on phenobarbital. And if the EEG is normal, neurodevelopmentally baby is normal, then you can stop if prior to discharge if baby is neurologically normal. But if there is something abnormal, like some baby has features of some neurologically abnormal, baby's cry and activity is not that much good, you should continue phenobarbital for at least 1 month. At 1 month also you can reassess. If baby is fine, you can stop, otherwise you can continue for the 3 months. At 3 months you can take an EEG, assess the baby, and you can plan accordingly. Strict neurodevelopmental follow-up is very important for all those babies who develop seizures during the newborn period. Vision, hearing assessment and imaging as required is also very important in such cases. Prognosis depends upon the underlying etiology. The good prognosis is for subarachnoid hemorrhage and benign idiopathic neonatal seizures and late onset hypocalcemia. Everything has got good prognosis. But in HAE, that is usually HAE stage 2 and all, it has got 50% good prognosis. And gestational age is also an important factor with increasing mortality and morbidity in extreme premature babies.